Conversation this morning with the superintendent of the Purchase Line School District, Shawn Ford, is brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And he's on the line with us now. Shawn, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
Wonderful. Good to have you with us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Well, we've been talking with our other school districts, and we finally get a chance to talk with you about COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic, and how Purchase Line has responded. You, along with all of the others, are having to adjust to a whole new way of educating students. How's it gone for you in these first couple of weeks?
You know, Todd, it's been a very big challenge for us. I said this yesterday to my staff. I said we've essentially changed our whole operation model in a 2-week period, and we focused our first focus, of course, is on food preparation, distribution to our students. Currently, we're serving 365 meals, breakfast and lunch, 5 days a week to our students. Mm-hmm. And so just to see that operation in place, and from the preparation to the distribution, we have 14 different points we're going out to in our community. Just so proud of our staff, our community, for making this happen, and that really is our first priority. The second part of that is our continuity of education plan, and then of course, with all of that is our cleaning standards, making sure that our building stays very clean and disinfected after people coming and going from the building. So that's been our kind of our model here that we've implemented in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, when we think about the continuity of education plan, we've talked with other school districts about how they're doing it. You at Purchase Line, at first, and you can tell me if there have been changes since that or adjustments to what you were doing, people could pull up to the front of the school and the packets would be brought out to them. And at the elementary school, a little bit different. The parents would be able to go inside the school and find the packet for their students. Is that still the way that it's happening?
Yes, we had our first, we distributed first there a couple weeks ago. Our next distribution will be on Tuesday, and we will stay with the same model. And then any packets that are not picked up, we actually mail out to all of our families. And so I think the last time we ended up mailing about 160 packets out that weren't picked up. And actually, they don't go in the elementary school. We actually have a window that people come out. We put the packet outside. They pick it up outside on a table. And so we're going to continue. That's the model, at least through this time. That's constantly evolving, and we're constantly looking at that. So at least for this time, we'll continue with that same model on Tuesday.
And so how does the online element then work with that?
Well, being a rural nature of our district, we have roughly about 70% of our students are connected to the internet, and we actually did a survey. All of our teachers surveyed the students when they reached out to them, and out of that 70%, only about 30% have high-speed capability. So we wanted to make an option that the students who do have the connectivity can utilize that, but that's why we went with learning packets for all students. And then within that, our teachers then reach out and they assess their classes, who has the availability, who doesn't. And then so we try to do a combination of both. That's saying kids who can get connected, you can utilize that. Kids who can't, we make sure we have the exact same option for them. And so that's a challenge because of our lack of connectivity, and even hotspots don't even work because we just do not have the ability in certain parts of our district to have that, which I think will be a long-term outcome of COVID-19 to see across the state just how big of a problem that is in the rural areas.
Yeah, well, this is really pointing it out. Our lawmakers were working on it. Now they're really going to have to kick it into gear. They've got enough on their plate, they think, but this is going to be a high priority.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you suspected that the connectivity issue would be a big thing for you. Were you surprised at all by how big it is?
No, we had done a previous survey, so we kind of had an idea, and that kind of drove our conversation as we looked at the continuity of education plan. We knew ahead of time just where we were at. we had a couple of our board members who've been very active, going to the meetings with our legislators and understanding the problem. So it's been on our radar, and we were very well aware of that.
All right. So we think about that and the way that the kids are able to react to that. And so the second packets go out next week. Have you had any sort of an indication of how many kids are participating actively and how they're embracing this?
The interesting part is we surveyed our teachers and we got the feedback from them. The interesting part is it goes back to that 70%. We're about 70%, which I find interesting because that's also the connectivity. So we're about 70 on each of those, and that's not to say that every student who has the ability to be connected is doing the work, but I found that interesting that those two statistics were in place there. So yeah, but we're roughly about 70%.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me about that is that in the past few years there have been all kinds of noise about, we don't really need snow days anymore because everybody's connected. That's not the case at all, is it?
No. We had 5 built-in snow days this year in our calendar, and it's the interesting thing is we actually had used 2 up until that March 13th date. And so now, of course, we're using the rest of them at the end of the year here.
Obviously, with the announcement yesterday by the governor of the closure of the school buildings themselves for the rest of this academic year, you have to make adjustments in terms of the school calendar, in terms of getting these kids qualified to graduate. How are those plans progressing?
Right now we are looking at, and I'll be sharing this at the board meeting on this coming Thursday evening, our virtual Zoom meeting, that my recommendation will still end on June 5th for students and also for graduation. Now we're going to look we're going to kind of postpone graduation, if you will, to see what happens with COVID-19 and this virus, and see if we can run something later in the summer, kind of a ceremony for our students. Probably my biggest disappointment is for our seniors. When I heard the announcement, I had a couple people ask, "What do you think about that?" I think it was probably a wise decision by our governor to make that decision for the safety and security, of our students, our staff, and really for all of our communities. But as I thought about that, my disappointments for the seniors and their families, and this is the time of the year where we're making preparations for those end of the year moments that are so important for our kids. And so right now those discussions are just starting. And what can we do to honor our seniors? What can we do to still make it meaningful here at the end of the year?
We're talking with Shawn Ford. He is the superintendent of the Purchase Line School District. We have talked about with others the emotional impact this has on students and their preparedness for something of this nature. And even we adults have problems preparing for something like this.
Absolutely.
But talk, if you would, about the district's guidance counselors and school psychologists and what a chore it's been for them. We early on we set up our guidance counselors met, our school psychologists were part of that, and we set up hotline. We put that on our website. Our guidance counselors have reached out to students, just specifically what you just said there, just to assess any mental health needs, anything that our guidance counselors can help with. I know our secondary, Mrs. Lambie, reached out to all the seniors, had a Zoom meeting with our seniors, and so it is a difficult time. And so we had that early on. That was one of the first things our guidance counselors doing. They're meeting every week. We're still running a lot of our services that we ran in school. We're continuing those services in a virtual world just to make sure we're identifying any students and or families in need. And then we're trying to direct them to the appropriate help centers that they may need. You also mentioned a couple of moments ago the staff that are keeping that building clean and disinfected as much as possible. That's not an easy thing to do, and they have to pretty much trail anybody that comes in with a rag right behind them in order to make sure that everything is taken care of and disinfected up to standard, correct? Yes.
We soon after the announcement was made, we did a deep clean of all of both buildings. And then what we do is we're really limiting access, and anyone who comes in the building has to go through an administrator. And then what we do is then anyone who comes in, we have a system in place that goes to our cleaning crews, and we clean our normal cleaning, and then we do a disinfectant on top of that. And so we've got a pretty good system. Every time there's a person in a building, at any space in that building, that part of the building is being cleaned and disinfected.
Yeah, and of course you've got people that are preparing these meals and getting them out too. We were talking earlier about community heroes and those people who are stepping forward on the front lines, and that certainly applies to our schools.
Oh, absolutely. I said after our healthcare workers and after our first responders, these folks that are out there preparing meals, distributing. We're going to 14 different stops, and we have 2 to 3 people on each vehicle going out there and distributing that food. And those are heroes, and those I've said that to them. I've shared that with them, and I know our community is really, really appreciative of that, and there's such a need for it. So no, I absolutely agree with you on that statement.
Yeah, Shawn Ford, Purchase Line School District Superintendent. Thanks for spending some time with us. Stay safe this weekend.
Well, thanks, Todd. I appreciate it, and you guys stay safe too, and really up for the whole communities. Everyone, please stay safe out there.
Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.